Namaste, everyone. In today's podcast, we are going to discuss a recent transit of Rahu and Ketu in Vedic astrology. So, just a few days back, on 29th May, Rahu and Ketu changed their sidereal signs. And if you are new to Vedic astrology, you may wonder what on earth Rahu and Ketu are even in the first place. Rahu and Ketu are commonly known as lunar nodes, which means that differently from other 7 of the Navagrahas or the 9 planets that we interpret in Vedic astrology, Rahu and Ketu are not really physical planets, but actual mathematical points in the sky. The shadow planets or the Chaya Grahas. And those very points actually help us to establish when the eclipses are going to happen. So we can also call them eclipse points in the chart. Because whenever full moon or new moon occurs around any of these 2 nodes, Rahu or Ketu, we can be sure that eclipse is going to happen then. And similarly, since Rahu and Ketu, they don't really have a body, a tangible physical manifestation, but are just these shadows, you could say, lurking in the sky, they also represent invisible subconscious forces in our mind, forces we are often unaware of. Forces like our past karma, traumas, subconscious beliefs that tend to rule our life and actually determine our destiny to a huge extent. That's what Rahu and Ketu are in practice. And of course, each and every single one of us, we have our own natal placement of Rahu and Ketu somewhere in our birth chart. But why the transit or gochara of Rahu and Ketu matters for us to understand and interpret? Because Rahu and Ketu are fairly slow-moving grahas, they actually spend 18 months in one sign. This transit, which just began at the end of May, is going to last almost until the end of October 2026. It's quite a long time, isn't it? And during that entire time, they will be teaching us some important life lessons. Because whenever Rahu transits to a sign, moves to another sign, he brings a lot of importance to that sign. Why? Because Rahu and Ketu also represent the opposite forces of our psyche. Rahu is the obsession. Rahu is the hyperfocus. While Ketu is detachment, disassociation, repulsion even. These 2 forces are known in yoga philosophy as Raga and Dvesha. Raga, passion or obsession, which is the domain of Rahu. Ketu, Dvesha or repulsion. So whenever Rahu and Ketu move to different signs, our priorities change a little bit because suddenly other things become important for us in life. And usually, the places which Rahu visit become more important and interesting for us to explore during a transit. While the places visited by Ketu are usually the ones we kind of prefer to move away from for the duration of the transit. So, of course, for each and every one of us, it's going to be quite unique because this transit of Rahu and Ketu happens in Aquarius and Leo. And for each and every one of you listening to this podcast, Aquarius and Leo will be different signs. You'll have different planets sitting there. So your unique life lessons and experiences will be unfolded through that. But with every transit of Rahu and Ketu, there is also something for all of us as humanity globally to learn. And those lessons, they repeat themselves. Every while and then, they repeat themselves, roughly every 17, 18 years, when Rahu and Ketu complete the whole journey throughout the zodiac. And it's very wise for us as an individual also to know what are those collective lessons for all of us. because it helps us not only to understand better what this transit brings for me, for you, for every one of us, but it helps us also to have more understanding for others, to understand more what is the best for us, not just for me, during a transit like that. And this aspect will be particularly pronounced right now, when Rahu entered sidereal Aquarius, which is actually the sign ruled by Rahu as well, while Ketu entered sidereal Leo. If you would really like to dump down these two signs, sidereal Aquarius, which is the original 11th house, and sidereal Leo, which is the original 5th house, Rahu in Aquarius, the first thing that he will try to do is to shift our attention and awareness from individuality, individual growth, personal gain, personal growth, to collective, from me to we. And that is actually a real beauty of that transit. Because whenever Rahu enters in the sign of Aquarius, we will see a lot of those polarities in the world. I'm quite sure of that in the next 18 months. Polarity between what's good for an individual or for certain groups of privileged people versus what is good for everyone, what is good for minorities. And it might be that there will be much more space for dialogue in this particular area, which means also that it is an incredibly important transit for growth and evolution for all bigger communities and organizations, to learn more together how we can grow together without exploiting together, without one benefiting from another, which is a very colonial and capitalistic idea. But instead, how can we somehow learn to grow together, with everyone being honored and respected, and with everyone's voice being heard? And that transit will be even more emphasized by the fact that during entire duration of this Rahu and Ketu transit, Saturn will spend his time in the sign of Pisces too, which is the sign also of collective consciousness. So in the previous years, we had the opposite situation. Saturn was dwelling in sidereal Aquarius, Rahu was in Pisces. Now they swapped the signs. Saturn moved into Pisces and Rahu is into the sign of Aquarius right now. And we can expect in the following years that indeed this shift from me to we, from exclusive to inclusive, will be a very big thing in the world. And naturally, whenever these shifts happen, from me to we, from exclusive to inclusive, we can expect some churning going on, because that's actually what Rahu always do in every sign that he visits. If he visits the sign of Aquarius, the sign that naturally represents larger communities and networking, he will bring disruption there as well. There will be more and more happening in the area of decentralization, for example, more and more happening in the areas of how can we collaborate more together, more happening in the areas of just community growth, And naturally, if you keep all of that in mind, you also can be a little bit aware that in this time period, perhaps you might be not as successful in terms of bringing your individual projects to life just by your own individual effort. In fact, with Ketu being simultaneously transiting the sign of Leo, we all will be learning this lesson during this period. The lesson that sometimes doing things together works better and brings better result than trying to do things individually. Which means that whichever project you have in mind in the next 18 months, bear in mind that networking might be the key to that. And learning how to teamwork, learning how to cooperate, because Rahu will be very rewarding in this context. And of course, since communities will be inevitably growing in power during this entire 18 months of Rahu's transit through Aquarius and Ketu's transit through Leo, we can expect globally also lots of reforms, lots of emergence of new social movements. Who knows, maybe revolutions even. While at the same time, there will be a lot of exposure to global lies, to individuals and companies who try to monopolize things, frauds, thefts. And yet at the same time, there will be a lot of conspiracy theories too, because that's what Rahu does, you see. He, on one hand, exposes some lies and makes you see things more clearly. He helps us to get disillusioned in a sense, and he will be doing that in the sign of Aquarius for the entire 18 months. He will be shattering our illusions. But we sometimes think about the disillusionment only as this one direction, you know? We sometimes think that disillusionment is only, if you idealized something and it turns out actually to be much worse. But it's not just that. Rahu also shatters the illusion if you had a very bad opinion about something and it turned out actually to be really good. So this shattering of illusions will be happening quite a bit. And at the same time, because of that, people and communities who benefit from creating illusions, they will be trying even harder to create them. There will be even more AI, and there will be even more conspiracy theories, there will be even more smoke screens. And there will be even more lies, very likely. One advice that I would have to all of you listening to this podcast is that with Rahu's transit through Aquarius specifically, please be very careful when it comes to things like thefts, when it comes to things like spams, when it comes to things like cyber attacks, because they will be certainly intensified so that someone may benefit from it. So be very careful for that. Because as much as on one hand we will have this emergence of more of we thinking versus I thinking, on another hand, there will be even greater emergence of the shadow side of it, which is just individuals trying to profit of others or trying to outright steal from others. It's also going to be the part of the story. So be wise in this period. Close the doors to your apartment. Always when you go out, do backups of everything and just stay safe in this case. And at the same time, don't get paranoid, because that can also increase in some individuals with this transit of Rahu through the sign of Aquarius. There might be greater suspiciousness towards other people. There might be even paranoia. There might be baseless fears. Because whenever Rahu, enters somewhere, he kind of always pops up these opposites, Because what Rahu and Ketu do really as they are moving through the zodiac, it is as if they are, churning our birth chart round and round as they always go in opposite direction to all other grahas, all other planets. They churn our karma out so that we may find this beautiful balance, actually. And from yogic perspective, from spiritual perspective, this balance is really between staying very grounded and connected to the reality, while still staying very centered and aligned with our vision and purpose. You see, interesting thing is that sidereal Aquarius represents zodiacal Muladhara chakra or root chakra, while sidereal Leo represents zodiacal third eye chakra. So when you have the nodes sitting there right now, you can also imagine that the life lessons that will be coming will be involving these two energy centers in your physical body. And when we talk especially about root chakra, where Rahu will reside, root chakra is about our survival fears as well, survival strategies, which can be very great and very toxic sometimes as well. Especially when it comes to fear, When Rahu enters any sign, he amplifies it. And that is even more true when Rahu enters into the sign of Saturn. So on one hand, we will be learning in this transit how to transcend our fears and not allow those fears to necessarily rule our life. And yet at the same time, we'll be learning not to become completely ungrounded, impractical, and carefree, which is yet another extreme, right? So we'll be learning how to balance both of those things. On the other hand, Rahu transiting through Aquarius also represents, the realm of the world, the realm of material life, which is full of limitations sometimes, full of obstacles, very real practical problems that need practical solutions. And this entire transit will also inspire us how to stay very grounded in this reality that surrounds us, and how to maintain a good relationship to it, how to acknowledge its limitations without getting stuck in them. Because on the other hand, we will still have Ketu transiting through Leo. And Ketu transiting through Leo is all about vision, greater vision, higher purpose, my personal growth also, intuitive insight, inner voice, what really makes you feel passionate. And that's the thing, because that entire transit will try to teach us how to bridge those two realities, how to stay true to your inner voice while still honoring your surroundings, honoring other people, communities, the world. How to stay true to yourself, how to stay aligned with your purpose and pursue it anyways, even when life throws some obstacles our way. Expectations versus reality, right? Expectations versus limitations. So, of course, the best thing that we can do in a transit like this is to just check regularly, even daily. Where are we on this spectrum? Are we perhaps following our vision too blindly without taking any real life circumstances into consideration? Or are we on the other end of the spectrum, completely lost the vision and got entangled just in problems and fears, and we don't allow ourselves to grow because of that? So this will be a really, really interesting time for all of us. And, whenever there is any transit of Rahu and Ketu that is new, we always feel it in some ways. We feel that the change is coming, and sometimes we can't quite name it. But we often feel that, perhaps I have been misaligned with my purpose last month or even years. Because that's also what Ketu in Leo will be actually inspiring us to do, to realign again with your purpose. Not just for your own benefit, for the benefit of everyone. Because when you are aligned with your purpose and shine your light, everyone can benefit from it. So it will be a very, very interesting time, globally and individually. Definitely a time to practice healthy humility, but also the time to allow yourself to expand and shine your light at the same time. So I wish you all beautiful next 18 months, I believe. And I wish you that you really find your way to navigate that. And whenever we talk about lunar nodes, Rahu and Ketu, since they don't have the body, Rahu and Ketu often come into our life through the medium of feeling or bodily sensations. And they can confuse us sometimes so much, because that's what the lunar nodes tend to do. But why confusion appears is because you see, when we get misaligned with our purpose or with our true feeling, if we ignored it long enough, of course, we sometimes almost forget it's there. But when it reemerges, it comes in a very implicit way, in a way that you can't even put it into words, like something is bothering you, but you are not quite sure what it is. It's just a sheer feeling. And then, of course, mind tries making entire stories out of it. But I encourage you to, instead of following those stories and interpretations of the mind, allow yourself to stay with that feeling of unease from time to time, or that feeling of confusion, that feeling that you don't really know what's going to happen next. Because guess what? In that space of unknown, you may actually discover something priceless. So I hope that you have very fruitful transit of Rahu and Ketu through sidereal Aquarius and sidereal Leo. Namaste.